I think this performance probably said more about Newcastle's season than ours. They have, they've signed some good players. They ended this last season very well. They're extremely good at home. Realistically, I'm probably not surprised by what happened. I did expect to see a bit more, not necessarily fight, but a little bit more composure on the ball. It wasn't a new way of playing, was it? But then again, we had 6 debutants in the starting 11, so this could take a bit of time to gel, and that could could cost us a bit in the long run, I suppose. But we do have 37 games left. But I think ultimately, overall, it said much more about Newcastle than us.
I think that's it. I think on the surface of things, a Newcastle side that are actually pretty good and have been for a while. A Forest team that's very new to the Premier League and has new signings and is going to take time to gel. On the surface of things, it makes sense. It's not the end of the world. It does make sense that we didn't win that game. I actually think they could have had a few more. I think we were quite lucky in some ways. I think Dean Henderson pulled off some okay saves. I think we looked a bit sloppy, so it could have been worse. But first game of the Premier League out the way, I think it will only add fuel to the players. I hope that they would want to do better off the back of that. So I hope that is the case.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, is there any kudos in it not being more than 2-0? And if you consider the fact that certainly the first goal was an absolute screamer that could not be saved. I mean, somebody possibly could have closed him down, but I think anybody would have been okay with him shooting from there type of thing. And the second goal, I haven't seen it on the replay close up.
It's a great finish,
but it certainly looked like a great finish. Certainly like a great finish. It took 2 flashes of brilliance to kind of beat us. And while it was scrappy, we were scrappy. That is a good thing. So there's a certain amount of kudos in that. But I think outplayed, outgunned, and the right team won, in my opinion. But I certainly don't. Certainly doesn't change my opinion on my perception of how this season will go, and maybe doesn't change. I mean, I know I've probably overshot myself by saying I think we'll finish 10th, but I'm not changing my opinion just yet. How about you, JJ?
I think for me, I can't change my opinion just yet because it is just one game. So to just tear up any hope of what I predicted before the season based off one game against a good side would be stupid. I think it's possibly was made worse by the fact that Bournemouth won and Fulham drew to Liverpool. I think I was banking on a lot of teams being worse than us. Those 2 new promoted sides obviously had a much better day than us, but one of them was playing Villa, who I don't really think are that great. And although it was Liverpool, they're at home, so Fulham.
As I say, they were both at home. I'd like to think we'll have a bit more skip in our step next Sunday. Absolutely,
but because they both had better days than us, it felt worse than it was. But then you do remember, as you said to me yesterday, still quite a few games left to go, so can't be too dramatic yet. Top 10, I think top 10, if I had predicted top 10 like you had, I think I might be backtracking on that, despite it being early doors, because that is quite a wild prediction.
Well, I suppose my question then to you is, after seeing yesterday's game, and obviously I think Mangala played pretty well when he came on. I certainly don't think Colback, as much as I really appreciate his efforts last season, I don't think he's got much of a future, certainly in a starting 11.
Yeah.
Lewis O'Brien had a couple of moments at the start and he looked a bit shaky after that, but I think it's very hard playing a 2-man midfield away at a strong team. First game of the season anyway, when everyone's gelling. I think that 2-man midfield has got to be very well-oiled machine like Yates and Garner were, which is why I think that manages to work, because there's not a lot of teams that play just 2 in midfield. There's not a lot of teams. But I suppose the question to you is, after seeing that game yesterday, where do we need to strengthen and who would you strengthen with?
I think left left wing back, I think Toffolo, he could have just had a bad game, but if I'm basing it purely on yesterday's performance, I don't think Toffolo looked fantastic. I think a lot of them looked a bit shaky, but he particularly didn't look great. I think Colback and O'Brien, as you've said, they stood out as not quite working to me.
Yeah.
It's one of those mixed things where a few people said Colback had a man of the match performance, had a great game, and a few people said Colback was ineffective. So it's one of them. It's a 50-50 thing, but I personally don't think he's a Premier League starter myself. So Mangala looked all right when he came on. He could be all right, but you know, with this talk of Davis, Dennis, and Gibbs White getting brought in, but if we can't get the ball to them and transition it to them, then there's almost no point having them. So I think we definitely need to strengthen in midfield to help us get further up the pitch. I think O'Brien looks like he can carry the ball well. I think he just did look a bit shaky yesterday. So for me, it's definitely the midfield. What about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, left back's an odd one because I think it's clear that Harry Toffolo was signed as the backup left back to Omar Richards, and I think it's also clear that Omar Richards isn't going to be playing football anytime soon. Hearing today that Angelino has actually decided to move to Hoffenheim on loan, which is not too surprising, really. You have to leave the country, that kind of thing. It's probably a little unnecessary if you ask me to go out and sign another left back. Could Colback, that kind of game where we need to do a bit more defending, could Colback come in at left back for Toffolo? It might be kicking the teeth to Toffolo, but Colback did play very well there for a very long time last season, particularly defensively. But centre midfield, as you've said, I mean, Ryan Yates is a shoo-in back in there, and anyone who's listened to the podcast for a long time knows that is a big statement from me. But yeah, his energy. That's the thing. He is a box to box midfielder now, and that's something we didn't have yesterday. And I keep going banging on about James Garner would be a wonderful signing. But then who misses out? Because we've just paid 12 million for Mangala, haven't we? So
yeah,
it's an interesting one.
I feel like there'll be a few games where we have to switch things up a bit, and we can get 3 of them in just because we might have to. I think yesterday could have been one of those games, but I think they'll all still get a bit of a look in. I don't think it's lack of game time for any of the midfield. I think they've all got a part to play, especially with 5 subs as a new rule.
Yeah, I mean, if James Garner came in, I could see him playing in the 10 away, that kind of thing. Although Jesse Lingard's on 80 grand a week, isn't he? So he has to start every game. It's an odd one. They play very well, and I think we kind of scrapped pretty well, if not played very well. And it's just that I think that's the only thing that Steve Cooper will be disappointed in, is that when we did get the ball, we didn't. There was that one cross in, wasn't there? That Surridge headed into the ground, and it's everybody has a chance, don't they? And that was probably our one chance. If that goes in, I think it's 1-1 at the time.
Yeah, there was a nice little bit of play. I was only reminded from Match of the Day this morning where O'Brien did run with it quite well and slipped a ball through. That was half chance. The shot was immediately blocked, and then Nico Williams thrashed it out wide.
Yes.
So
there
was that as well. I think, obviously we get one of those half chances in and it's a different story. But yeah, I don't know how much we can read into yesterday. It was just, I think it was what was well needed after a really exciting few weeks. Just a bit of realization that it's not going to be as easy as we thought it is. There are a lot of realists out there that obviously knew that, but I was certainly an optimist.
Dare to dream.
Yeah, I was dreaming quite a lot there. So yeah,
absolutely. I mean, certainly not down. It was a bit of a bummer because we were all excited, but certainly not down. I think Twitter can be a wonderful place full of really nice moments, but it can also be an absolute toxic wasteland. So please don't look and read too much into Twitter, that kind of thing, especially after a loss. But we're not down, we're not out. There'll be much easier teams to play than Newcastle. As in, I think there's 12, 13 teams easier to play than Newcastle, really, when you think about where they'll be this season. But yeah, I'm really just again looking forward to West Ham next week, and I know we're going to have a guest on the show when we do our podcast on Tuesday. Who'll be a West Ham fan, so kind of get a bit of insight on them and where they are in their season. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to getting back to the world famous City Ground.
Absolutely, bring it on.
Bring it on.
Shall we call it there? This was just a bit of a test to see if live worked. Thanks to Gary for helping us there, because it certainly wasn't at first. But along the season, we'll do many more of these, hopefully with better quality and better production value.
And actually letting you know that they're going to happen as well.
Yes, this was very much a test. Cheers for listening if you have listened, and I shall see you later. Ta-ra.